So are you ready, Rachel?
Yeah, we are recording. Welcome, welcome everybody. This is the candidate forum co-sponsored by the Albany County Public Library and the League of Women Voters for the Albany County Fire District. Every year or every election year, we're always pleased to co-sponsor these together to bring this valuable resource to the voters of our community. And so now I'm happy to turn it over to Nancy Lockwood, who will explain more about how this forum will work.
Welcome everyone to our virtual candidate forums. I'm Nancy Lockwood, as Rachel mentioned. I'm co-president of the League of Women Voters with Lynn Ipina. I'd like to thank the Albany County Public Library for co-sponsoring our candidate forums, particularly Library Director Rachel Crocker, who has assisted us with the Zoom platform for tonight's forum. As she mentioned, tonight's forum is for the Albany County Fire District 1 candidates. There are 5 candidates running for 2 positions. We invited all the candidates to participate in this evening's forum. We have 3 candidates with us. One candidate, Sean Sommerfeld, is off fighting a fire in Nevada and said he probably would not be able to make it, but if he comes in late, we'll admit him and let him participate. And I did not hear back from one of the other candidates, that's W. Charles Looney. We are recording tonight's forum and we'll be posting it on YouTube within the next few days. At the end of the forum, we will provide the link to tonight's forum, as well as some other links to the League, the Albany County Public Library, and other resources about the election. Laramie's Public Access TV station, Channel 191, will also air the forum in the coming days. And we hope to have the forum posted on the website vote411.org. Tonight's forum will begin with some general information about the general election and the forum procedures. The general election is Tuesday, November 3. Absentee voting begins tomorrow, Friday, September 18. You can request an absentee ballot from your county clerk's office now through November 2. The county clerk's office needs to receive your absentee ballot by November 2. You can vote by completing a ballot at the county clerk's office. What?
Never mind.
You ready? You can vote by completing a ballot. Oh, am I the only one getting the feedback?
No.
I'll continue. You can vote by completing a ballot at the county clerk's office after September 17, or by returning your absentee ballot to your county clerk's office such that it is received by November 2. You may also take your absentee ballot to your polling place on Election Day. On the day of the election, polling places are open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. In addition, you can register to vote or change your registration now through November 2 at the county clerk's office if you also cast an absentee ballot at that time. And you can register or change your registration at your polling place on Election Day. If you have special needs, voting accommodations and aids are available at each polling place and at the clerk's office. The election judges can assist you at the polls. You may also contact the clerk's office to arrange in advance for assistance. Polling places have been consolidated for this election due to COVID-19. There are 4 polling places within the city limits and 2 polling places outside the city limits. If you are a registered voter in Albany County, you should have received a postcard in the mail. I think they came out in the spring or early summer with the location of your polling place for the general election. You can also contact the county clerk's office or go to their website to find your polling place. In addition to finding your polling place, the Albany County's website and the Wyoming Secretary of State's website are great resources to find out about voting in the election. On October 11, 2020, the Laramie Boomerang will publish the League's Voter's Guide. The League will also post the Voter's Guide on our website and on the Vote411 website, as well as having copies available at the Albany County Public Library and the Albany County Clerk's Office, as well as other locations in town. If you are interested in knowing more about the League of Women Voters or in becoming a member, please visit our website and Facebook page. We will begin tonight's forum with questions for the candidates. The League has chosen questions from those provided to us by local citizens, including League members, and the questions are specific to the office, not towards individual candidates. Therefore, the moderator will ask all candidates tonight the same questions. Questions were not provided to the candidates in advance of tonight's forum. Responses to the questions are limited to 90 seconds. Candidates, we ask that you wait to begin your response until you are on speaker view and spotlighted. We also ask that you try to keep yourselves muted except when speaking, to try to avoid the feedback like we're getting some here in the library. If you forget, the tech people here, our host can do the muting and unmuting for you. The moderator will have the discretion to edit questions for clarity and appropriateness, to ask follow-up questions to help expand upon an issue, to cover unaddressed issues, and to elicit responses that will assist voters in distinguishing one candidate from another in relation to issues. All candidates will be given time to respond to any follow-up questions. The moderator may also vary the response time based on the complexity of the question and overall time constraints of the forum. At the conclusion of the forum, we will display by screen share a list of the candidates and their contact information so you can connect with them for further information. And now I will turn things over to our moderator tonight, Mike Massie. Mike Massie is a retired historian and administrator who served in the state legislature, on the University Board of Trustees, the University of Wyoming Board of Trustees, and is chairman of the Community Coalition for the recently built Laramie High School. He is currently a board member of the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resources Trust. He has also served as a moderator for other candidate forums in recent years and for our primary election in this year. And the League is pleased to have him return. So welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Nancy, and welcome to the candidates for the board. Glad you can join the forum tonight. Before we get started, I'll add just a little bit to my brief bio. I am or was a volunteer firefighter for many years with the Atlantic City Volunteer Fire Department of Fremont County. In fact, I hung around long enough doing that I qualified for retirement. And so when I actually did retire, I'm getting a little bit from the volunteer fireman's pension fund every month, which is something I certainly appreciate. That does not in any way convey that I have an understanding of the issues that our three candidates will be talking about tonight. So I'll be depending quite a bit on the questions that came my way from members of the community. And then if we get through those, maybe delve into some other things, especially specific issues that the candidates may have on their mind. This is how we'll proceed tonight, so we'll try to be fair to everybody. As mentioned earlier, the responses will be a maximum of 90 seconds, and you'll see the various signs that go up. And we'll proceed in alphabetical order. And that's easy enough with just three of us here, three candidates. We'll start with Luke, and then Brett and Joseph, and we'll go in that order for the first question. And then the second question, we'll start with Brett, then Joseph and Luke, and you get the idea. I'll switch around who needs to go first or who has to go first in answering the questions, and I'll repeat that order as just before I ask the question, so everybody will have an understanding of where they'll fall with regard to the responses. Again, to emphasize what Nancy said, if you're not talking, if you could put your microphone there where you're at on mute, then that'll make sure that we don't have any background interference. And we'll finish up about 8:30, about an hour and 15 minutes from now. And the final question, which I'll throw out to everybody, will essentially be a 90-second opportunity for you as candidates to say whatever you want. You could go back over a previous question that you may have been cut off from, or you have some additional thoughts that you want to convey, or you just might talk about something that we didn't bring up at all tonight. So keep that in mind as we go through the forum. that you'll have those 90 seconds there at the very end. So let's go ahead and get started. The first question is for Luke, and then after that will be Brett and Joseph. And here's the question for you, Luke, to get us started. Why are you running, and why do you believe you would be an effective district director? So go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I was a firefighter, like you, a volunteer firefighter. I started out in about 2003 up in Rock River, actually, in northern Albany County. I volunteered with Rock River and then ended up moving on to Centennial Valley as we moved to Laramie, later on being hired on with Laramie Fire Department. Firefighting has become a huge passion of mine. I'm very interested in serving the community in the fire aspect. I've also gone on to paramedic school and have found great reward in serving the community. With that extensive background in firefighting and EMS, I unfortunately wasn't able to self-sustain my family, my wife and children, and so I ended up having to move on financially to a different department in Colorado, actually. I still live in Albany County. I still live near the Laramie area, just a couple miles outside of Laramie. And I absolutely love this community, and I very much missed it over the last few years that I've been working in Colorado. With that, it's provided an opportunity to learn a lot about firefighting and the background, the backstory, the behind the scenes of how stuff actually works. And I've wanted to get involved in Albany County and with Laramie very much more. And so I found that I really fit well into more of a board type position as opposed to volunteering more on the aligned side with some of our local fire departments. And so I'm looking forward to being able to serve the Albany County community. I'm looking forward to being able to serve our citizens once again, as I have in the past, but in just a different aspect. I think I bring a lot of things to the table with my background, and not being directly involved with the local fire departments also helps to keep a broader perspective as to what's going on.
Thanks, Luke. Brett, you're next.
Okay, thanks, Mike, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for hosting this event tonight, and as well to the other candidates. It's good for the local community to have multiple people who are interested in running for these positions. They have, a choice, which is extremely important. As for myself, why am I running? Well, quick bio. I spent a career in the military, gave me a wide variety of experience, particularly in staff functioning and high-level decision-making, as I had a lot of really highly qualified mentors, high-ranking officers, and secretaries at the Pentagon, who I was able to watch and see the process they went through in the staffing and bureaucracy process. The reasons for running, I'm currently a member of the Beatable Volunteer Fire Department. I'm a fire chief there, and I have been so for 7 years, helped to bring that department back to life, so to speak, growing it from absolutely nothing back to a functioning fire department and able to respond to the calls. And being a part of that, and particularly as the chief, I've been able to learn and see the firsthand experience of how the decisions and actions of the board have a huge impact on the volunteers. And the board has to make informed and wise decisions before they take action that can impact the morale of our volunteer firefighters. Because if we lose our firefighters, we have nothing left, regardless of how many buildings or trucks or hand tools we have. We need to focus on the most cost-efficient and effective fire protection, and focus on the health and welfare of those firefighters. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Joseph. Yep, go right ahead. Oh, I think you're on mute. Yep, Joseph, can you hear us?
But it says
Yeah, there you go.
it says you are muted. Oh, you are unmuted now. All right, my name is Joe Witt. I've been a resident of Albany County since 1994, at which time I retired from the government. And one of the first things I did was become involved in the community and volunteer for the Centennial Valley Volunteer Fire Department. I was with that department for almost 20 years. And when it came time to retire, I was approached by some members to run for the board because many of the firefighters were dissatisfied with the actions because the board didn't seem to consider the independent stations themselves, and they just saved the money and didn't support them. And when I came on, there was a change with the board, and we started supporting and supplying the money that was collected to the individual departments. And I think we've come a long way with that of helping to support the departments. At this time, with help from the Albany County Assessor, we've managed to make the amount of money available to each department is that 3 mills that is collected by the assessor for the property tax. And that money is now going to the individual departments, which I think is the biggest accomplishment of this board. And I've really enjoyed the work and working with different departments, and I'd like to stay involved.
Okay, thanks, Joe. We're off to a good start here. So this next question, we'll start with Brett, and then we'll go to Joe, and then to Luke. So Brett, here's the question for you. What are the top 3 challenges facing Albany County Fire District 1, and how would you address them?
Okay, Mike, thanks for the question. Top 3 challenges are, again, morale and maintaining the morale of the firefighters, making sure their opinions and their feedback on various decisions before the board is considered before making a decision. The volunteers are purely volunteers. They get no rewards for this, for the dozens, hundreds of man hours perhaps that they put in each year. 3 meetings a month, at least per VDBU, where they show up and put in time. There's no rewards other than satisfaction in the job and feeling they're respected as well as their opinions. I would focus on the best, most cost-efficient fire protection as a second challenge, maintaining the contract with the city of Laramie, making sure that is enhanced and utilized because they provide a service that can't be replaced at virtually any comparable cost within the fire district itself. And then again, redirecting and focusing the attention on the health and safety measures for the volunteer firefighters, from making sure diesel exhaust fumes within buildings are mitigated so they don't develop cancer in their later years when they're trying to retire on that volunteer retirement. Ensure that EMTs are supported, trained, and encouraged. We need more EMTs throughout the volunteer service. And then also bringing in OSHA from the state of Wyoming to take a look at the various departments and see what health and safety measures are deficient in each of the departments, and is focusing on those things.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Joe.
Well, I think the largest obstacles facing the board is, number one, is recruitment, especially here in Centennial, where you have an aging population. It's hard to recruit people. And I think this is true in some of the other departments. And it just seems like, I don't know, it's whether it's the period of time we're going through or something, but it just seems like recruiting is very hard to get somebody to put in the time, the necessary time to learn to really how to do the job. And the second thing is the money crunch. Much of the equipment and the stations are quite old and they should be replaced. But the problem is the money limited to the fire district is 3 mil of the property tax, which is this time is around $500,000 a year. So with that limit, and that's at this time, I don't think you're going to get a tax increase anywhere. So we've tried to find other ways. Departments do a lot of their own fundraising, but the biggest thing at this time was cutting back on the City of Laramie Fire Department contract, because that contract was 25% of the 3, which is 120,000 out of 500. So that's really taking a lot of money from the departments, and it really sort of limits what they can do. And at this time, the way it's being phased out is this year, the City of Laramie is only responding to structure fires. And
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Your 90 seconds is up, but you'll have a
Okay,
chance at the
sorry.
end. No, that's okay. You'll have a chance at the end to
Okay.
pursue any other thoughts. So thanks, and Luke, you're up.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I would echo the same things that Chief Wadsworth and Joe Wett has said. Recruitment, retention, training, all are key factors into a working department. Recruitment in the volunteer service nationally is down. Retention is always down because once you get guys trained up, they end up either aging out or else moving on to paid departments. So these are huge challenges. And Joe really hits that nail on the head with the 3 mil. When you look at Wyoming State Statutes 359203, and that is a Wyoming State statute. It's set by legislation. It's a statewide 3 mil. As far as my research is done with the Wyoming State Archives, it shows that it was set in 1955. So that 3 mil is definitely something that I believe needs to be addressed. Some of them are neighboring states and neighboring departments that are combination, even volunteer, are working on 16 to 21 per mils on their tax revenue. So there's a lot of room to grow, but we need to kind of redirect some of our focus. I think financially, especially these times with COVID, it's going to be a huge challenge. But I think that we need to focus our energies onto that recruitment, retention, and training. Joe's again hit the nail on the head with Laramie Fire Department providing an excellent service at a very low cost. But unfortunately, it's a big part of the county fire department budget. So we just need to move forward from there.
Okay, thanks, Luke. This next question, we'll start with Joe, and then we'll go to Luke and finish off with Brett. And this next question is closely related to some of the discussion that some of you had with this last question. And this one will deal with the budget. So Joe, this might be a good time for you to continue with your discussion about the budget. But here's the specific question. What is the fire department's budget approximately, and what are the most pressing demands on those funds, and what are you going to do about it if you don't have enough funding to take care of all the demands?
Well, the problem you have is you have to prioritize. And at this time, that 3 mils works out to, I would say, the central district, there's 5 departments. And the problem you have is they're all different sizes. The central district has about half the population. So they're going to get approximately half the budget, but not quite as much. And then you have 2 small districts, which is Tie Siding and Vitavoo. The problem you have there is they're very small, but the equipment's very expensive. And then you have the 2 medium districts being Big Laramie and Centennial, and you're only talking 20 or 21% of the budget, which is that 380 at this time, comes out to about $29,000 or $32,000 per year. And from that, they have to get all their necessities for their station. Most of the stations do fundraising. They buy their major equipment. But we do have to do something as far as expanding the budget, but that's going to be a hard sell in this COVID times because there's no way that the county commissioners are going to approve an increase to our budget.
Okay.
So we have to learn to do with what we have.
Okay. Thanks, Joe. Luke.
Yeah, absolutely. These are challenging times. I would echo what Joe said. It is and honestly a fairly small budget for the number of departments that we have going on. And the chiefs in this county have done an excellent job with doing everything that they possibly can with such a little amount. They get great donations from their communities. They go out and advocate for their departments. They go and advocate for their citizens and their communities, and they're really doing impressive things. I absolutely would love to support them in what they do. The demands on the budget are always going to exceed what the budget actually is. And that's just kind of the nature of the beast. This current board has done an excellent job with divvying up what they can to each of the departments. Not everybody is always happy, but everybody is getting done what they need to get done. As the departments grow older, however, we're just going to have to go back into doing recruitment and retention for those firefighters. And making sure that they're taken care of. Like Chief Wadsworth has said, Chief Sommerfeld has done an excellent job with building his department at this time. Even though he's had reduced budgets, he's actually building new stations. You know, their community is supporting him. They're supporting their department. They're doing an excellent job. You know, we just need to move forward to find that money to make sure everything's happening.
Okay, Brett, you're up.
Okay, thanks again, Mike. First question, what is the fire district budget? You know, roughly $500,000 comes in per year from the 3 mills. And yeah, that's the size of the pie. It grows a little bit each year, thank goodness. But there's always growing needs and demands. Everybody's excited about getting new trucks all the time, but it's something we have to control to make sure we're balancing the needs of newer equipment as opposed to just more equipment. It really comes down to an ends versus means discussion. What is our end state? What are we trying to achieve? The best fire protection that we possibly can for the best price we can and the best safety we can for the firefighters across the board. That is what we really need to drill in on and achieve the right metric to make sure we're providing that best protection for the best price. Some of the demands out there, clearly the infrastructure, the buildings, they require ongoing maintenance. The vehicles, the rolling stock, that requires ongoing maintenance. Each and every time you take it out, you are jeopardizing something on those vehicles, depending on who's driving the trucks and what rocks they go over along the way. And then certainly power. I know for Beatavoo, it looks like heating is going to consume 1/3 of our budget from the fire district this year, which is a huge amount. And then training and protective equipment. Fundraising is a big part. We're going to do a Christmas tree sale this year. Come out and see us in West Laramie for the Beatavoo Volunteer Fire Department. We need all the help we can get for the funds. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Now for this next question, we'll start back up at the top of the alphabetical order here with Luke and then Brett and Joe. So Luke, here's your question. And I think the person that came up with this question is saying the things that most of us are seeing every night here on television with regard to the enormous fires out on the West Coast. And certainly in the back of our minds, wondering when that's going to come to Albany County, to the Medicine Bow Range, to the Laramie Range, or perhaps even to the plains itself. So here's the question. Experts are saying that fire seasons will become more intense. How will that affect firefighting in rural areas of Albany County? And we'll start off again with Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that's an excellent question. It's you know, it's one that we all wish we could predict. We've had some big fires in the past up in Medicine Bow. We're bound to have some more. We just had another one kick off recently, I think today or last night in Savage Run, and that's starting to build as we speak. Aaron Voss is the IC on that, and he's got aerial on it already. So they're doing great efforts. Years ago, I took an urban interface class through the Forest Service and was able to actually spotlight Albany, the town of Albany, and see what type of mitigations need to be done to help protect that. You know, it is a science. Weather plays a huge role in it. Right now, those fires in California are getting lots and lots and lots of media. And they're working their tails off. And what that takes is it takes hours of man hours. It just takes man hours and man hours and man hours to help try to control those things. And so we're back to that same cycle of we need financing, we need training, we need firefighters, and we need to be able to pre-plan those incidents. You know, no community is going to be without some scars, unfortunately, in the next few years. And so hopefully we're able to prepare for those as these chiefs have been doing so far diligently, and that we'll be able to continue to protect our communities.
Okay, thanks, Lou. Brett.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Great question. Enormous fires. Clearly, I know my hometown is in the process of burning right down right now back in Oregon in the Glide and Idlewild Park area. Have not had a fire of any significant magnitude for years, and now it's up to 120,000 acres. So it's impacting people that we all know to a great extent. Read an article here recently talked about California and these enormous fires and what is leading to it. Now, certainly global warming to the extent that is taking place, but it's also the buildup of fuels. The scientific article said they need to burn 20 million acres per year in a controlled manner to start getting this buildup of fuels under control. I would say the same thing needs to happen within the Medicine Bow National Forest. Unfortunately, the public doesn't like to see their forests burned deliberately. They hate to see it when it's an accident or when it's an act of God. And so simply getting California, for instance, to be able to burn these and reduce these fuels is almost impossible. The deck is stacked against the professionals to be able to do that. For those who live in the wildland urban interface, get out there and clean your local area, rake the forest, reduce that fuel loading, take off those ladder branches, because it will impact you. You want to reduce the amount of fuels that are right around your household, your cabin, whatever it is out there, reduce the chance that a spark is going to land and develop into something. And you can protect your house. Even though the forest goes up, you might still be good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Joe.
All right, I think is what Brett said. There's really the California fires should be a warning to all of us, is that the fact that the people there in California cease cleaning up their forests. And as a result, you have these intense fires because there's just so much fuel. The intensity of the fires themselves really almost limit what you can do with it. I think we've been fortunate here in the Medicine Bow. They've really managed to keep a lot of the fuels from really building up. Just a few years ago, they had a couple of what they call controlled burns where they cleaned up some areas, and that helps a lot. The problem when you get a forest fire like that, you can control it quickly. And I don't think there's anything you can do to limit nature because you're going to have lightning no matter what. But the best thing you can do is try and keep it clear. And as Brett said, the best thing for the people living in the county is to keep a defensible space around their homes. And that means don't start your firewood next to your house. Keep it away.
Thanks, Joe. This next question, we'll start with Brett and then go to Joe and Lou. And it's a follow-up to the responses that you just provided to the last question. And that is, given your vision of fighting these fires in the future, will that change how the fire department trains your volunteer firefighters in preparing them to deal with these range fires, as well as the interface with so many of the cabins and buildings on our forests and in the district?
Thanks, Mike. In terms of the question being vision of fighting fires of this magnitude and how will that affect or change how we train and prepare. You know, certainly I'm not the most experienced firefighter out there. There's people who've been doing this for 30, 40 years, and my hat's off to them for doing this. I've been doing this for 7 years now. My opinion at this point is that the level of science and the level of development of the training process and the skills, the various skills that go into this, you know, it's not rocket science. There's a basic set of skills that we all go into this with. What it really comes down to me, with these big fires, is going in with a very judicious and careful attitude and making sure our firefighters are aware of the risks, not to temper their desire to get out there and have a hand in this and to try to do what they can to stop these things, but really come at it with their eyes wide open, particularly for the youngest men and women who are just joining, making sure they are educated to the point so they know what they're dealing with, they know what the risks are, and then get out there and work within the incident command structure, following the instructions of their supervisors, doing the tasks that they've been trained to do in a careful, controlled, deliberate manner to help get a perimeter around these things and help in whatever capacity they're in to get retardant and cooling measures and or just plain mineral earth onto the fire and help to control that thing as safely and reasonably as effectively as they can.
Okay, Joe.
All right. I think the biggest thing that these recent innovations show is when a fire is detected, you have to hit it right away. You cannot let it get out of control. And that's been the big example of California. As long as we can get with them right away, I think the way the federal government has set up, they've brought in plenty of resources for all the departments. I mean, wherever that huge fire occurs, you will get help from everyone. But the biggest thing is they have to consider safety first, and you hate to see someone killed. But when the wind changes directions, a lot of times these firefighters are caught in untenable positions. So you not only have to fight the fire, you have to fight the elements besides. So the best thing you can do is train the people well so they're aware of what's going on around them. That's the best I can tell you.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Luke.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mr. Chairman. You know, in my experience, there's really no better way to learn and train how to fight fire than other to fight fire. Important basic classes need to occur, and they can occur locally. A lot of my basic training was done here in Albany County, in Laramie, but really where I learned how to fight fire, wildland fire, was on dispatches, on deployments where I fought fire in Nevada or Colorado or across the state in Wyoming. And that's really one of the basic things that we must do with our local firefighters. As these firefighters are growing up in our volunteer system, we need to get them to basic training so that they can stay safe, they can take care of themselves, they can be aware of the cancer concerns, they can be aware of the physical stresses that occur during wildland firefighting.
Okay.
But we really need to support them and support our departments to do deployments, to do dispatches, to get their firefighters and their trucks out onto some of these big fires. The amount of information, education that they'll get and training that they can get from doing that is invaluable. The key part of that, however, is to then bring that education, bring that training, bring those learned lessons back to these local departments. When you have a volunteer department that has a good group that has been out on many national wildland fires, they're going to be very strong in being able to fight wildland fires in our community, in our area, and they'll be able to protect our communities and our homes.
Okay, thanks, Luke. This next question, we'll start with Joe and then go to Luke and Brett. So Joe, here's the question for you. Is there anything you would like to urge the county commissioners or their appointed boards to do that would make firefighting easier for the district?
Yes, I would like to see the county commissioners really get more involved with the district. And I think one of the ways they could do that is to have one of the commissioners attend our public meetings. We have a public meeting once a month, and if one of the commissioners could show up there every month, they would become more familiar with the problems of the district. And I think then they could help us. And one of the biggest problems we have is the misunderstanding of the role of EMTs with fire. According to statutes, the fire district isn't supposed to fund any medical help, but we fund EMT training because the firefighters need that training for themselves if they get injured. But the hospital district is, and that it's a sore point with a lot of people. And I know they always come back to that is we should be doing more for them, but you're really hurting the firefighters with their money if you're spending it on something else where that should be funded by someone else. And I think the county commissioners, if they become more, if that's impressed upon them more, they will see and they will, I think, help us in that regard.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Luke.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Absolutely, I echo what Joe has to say. Involvement, the county commissioners, legislators need to get involved. When they get involved with what we have going on, they'll see that the state statutes that were set in 1955 at 3 mil for property taxes to support fire suppression, that job in 1955 did not encompass what it now encompasses. The amount of training that these guys do, the amount of equipment, the certification level, the overhead. It's unreasonable to think that they're able to both do wildland, fire suppression, structure suppression, urban interface, EMS, EMT, hazmat. I mean, the list goes on as to what these volunteers and the firefighters do. And so definitely it comes down to understanding and supporting what the firefighters are really being required to do these days. Even from the basic aspect of fuel load, old structures are legacy fuels where they had a lot more time to be able to do a structure fire suppression. Now, with lightweight construction, homes are able to burn much quicker, and they're much more dangerous because of the chemicals that come off of these fires. The petroleum products from couches, from siding and so on, it just goes on from there.
Okay, Brett.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, in terms of county commissioners or other board members and their support and their presence, my hat's off to Commissioner Terry Jones. She at least attended one of the Albany County Fire District meetings that I saw. I'm not able to make all of them, but we certainly crossed paths at one. So thanks to her for that. And it gives her some idea and involvement and demonstrates leadership for her to come out there and see what is transpiring at the district meetings. And I would appreciate and ask and invite the other county commissioners to come visit us as well. Other things, if we can break through this this legislative requirement and division of the responsibilities for medical and firefighting support, that would greatly help, because those things really go hand in hand. For firefighters, we're typically first on scene. To be able to have the training, the equipment, and the supplies necessary to provide medical care to people who may be injured at the scene of an incident. You get 2 for 1. And particularly, there's been articles in the New York Times here in the past couple of years about the slow degradation of medical support and first responding support to medical issues throughout these wild rural areas of the West, like Wyoming. It's something that has to be addressed. Certainly appreciation, respect by all of our board members for the huge number of hours that are donated by our volunteers each and every year, and then also to conduct fundraising to support their operations is a big demand. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Brett. Okay, for this next question, we'll start with Luke and then go to Brett and Joe. So Luke, here's the question for you. How much of Albany County Fire District No. 1's strategic plan has been implemented, and what are the challenging parts?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The strategic plan that I'm aware of has been implemented in several different areas. One of the areas that they've tried to really do is give better coverage to the citizens, specifically around the donut. And that came into play with Albany County Central. So I think that the plan appears to be doing well. From my understanding, the problem or the challenges really occur with back to financing and recruitment and retention. And that's really been the theme tonight in terms of just getting volunteers, getting bodies in the seats, getting bodies in the stations, and being able to recruit and keep those recruits safe and really into the seats. The challenges will continue to go through that through the COVID times, but as far as I'm aware with the strategic plan, things are progressing forward. The board has done an excellent job The chiefs, as I said, Chief Summerfield being able to build a new station in some of his coverage areas, Chief Whitmer being able to complete or near completion of the Albany County South Central station. Those are going to bring great coverage to the community.
Okay, thanks, Luke. Brett.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. The strategic plan, yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend the last strategic planning meeting, but in terms of the things that have been implemented, as Luke mentioned, creation of the Central Fire Department has taken place. That's been a work in progress for the past number of years. Recently, there was also a goal of getting to the point where we can put a trained EMT on every engine. We're not there. We have to figure out a way to encourage those firefighters to take the classes, spend the time, and then go and attend the monthly recurring training requirements to maintain their medical certificate for EMT so they can support their fellow firefighters while they're out there in fires. Recruiting, that remains a challenge in these rural areas. We rely to a great extent on the pool of people that live in Laramie and then come out to us to respond and participate. And that is a huge issue, trying to get more of the local citizens in these rural areas to participate is a challenge and a task that I have not quite cracked the code on yet, and I'm working on it. I would also say that, while it's not really a requirement of the district itself, helping and encouraging and supporting turnover plans or replacement plans within departments for department leadership. If you lose one or two key members, entire departments can just explode and come apart. We need to have an idea of who is next on step and who next might be up to take those leadership positions and encourage them to take those roles.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Joe.
I think as far as strategic plan, Luke hit it well there. The big thing was putting the station where most of the people were, and that was the central station. Before, the outlying departments had to come in, and most of the, well, half of the residents were right in the donut, and there was nothing there to serve them. So now we've got that. And another thing that's come a long way is all new subdivisions were required to have what they call the cistern to help those homes fight fires. And what we found out was many people, once they moved there, nobody was responsible for those. So if you did have a fire in a certain district, water was an extreme problem. So it's what we've really been working on is what they've called a hauled water program. We've got some tenders that are placed out, and they're the first ones on call because water is the big problem in the county. And that's going to be a problem in the future. And another problem is the inadequate roads in many of the county areas where the vehicles have trouble getting to the location. So the problem you have there is nobody wants to assume that responsibility. And that can't be the fire district. That's got to be the local homeowners and what have you that have to make sure their roads are passable for most of this equipment. And as I said before, money is going to be a problem because each of these trucks is so expensive that the district can't afford to buy new vehicles. They're always going to be in the used vehicle situation. And those aren't cheap either. They're very expensive.
Thanks, Joe. The next question, we'll start with Brett and then go to Joe and Luke. And so Brett, here's the question that was sent in. Are there adequate water supply points across the county? How would you identify an area covered inadequately, and how would you attain the water there?
Well, thanks, Mike, and thanks, Joe. You teed me up nicely. I'll take a swing at that one. No, it's a great question here in the dry environment of Laramie. Water is a challenge. I know Vitaboo right now, we have as a goal of putting a large tank, 15,000 gallons in the ground. Then of course you got to ask, well, what kind of well supply do you have to fill that? Well, we've got about, I don't know, 2 to 3 gallons per minute coming out of our well. It'll only take a day and a half, maybe 2 days. We might have that thing full. But the fact is, having some strategically located and identified sources of water, that comes down to the corporate knowledge of the various departments and the long-term members to know where's a beaver pond you can go, where's a stream. If there happens to be a hydrant, often in Laramie or out in Centennial, know where to go to get that and use that water. Go into Rob Roy Reservoir if you're up in Medicine Bow or the other areas. The cisterns that Joe talked about, yeah, those are inadequate. Nobody cleans the sticks. Nobody cleans the rat's nests out of them. And so if there is some water, by the time you drop a hose in there to pull some water out, you suck up enough sticks that you plug your pump and have problems for the rest of the outing, and not good. The whole water program, that's been a good move on the part of the district. But again, it comes down to the availability, the training, and make sure you have enough commercial driver's licenses and on operators to be able to drive those trucks. And then make sure that when that call comes at 1 o'clock in the morning, do you have somebody with a CDL who's trained on that truck, who's able and willing to go out and jump in that truck and take it to the scene of the fire, who doesn't have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to a job. It is a challenge in the volunteer service. Thank you.
You bet. Joe.
Well, I think Brett hit it on the nail there. The problem is experience. And you can't take new firefighters and expect them to know where the water is. This is where the experience comes in. I mean, in Centennial, they have one fire hydrant. There's a number of places where they have what they call dry hydrants, but a couple of those are really dry now because of the drought. And that is going to be a problem forever. I don't think we can ever solve that. And the only way we can really try and fix it in some way is try and get as much water there as we can. And through that program, the district has been pushing for what they call ISO. This is where the insurance company comes out and they tell the departments what they have to do, how much water they have to have, so the residents can lower their tax bill. And then that's a two-pronged thing, because then the residents will help the fire departments more once they know they're going to save money if they can get an extra tanker or something of that nature. But water is going to be a problem, and a drought condition really doesn't help it. But the biggest thing is experience, knowing where the driver knows where he can get some water.
Okay, Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I remember that well, Joe, serving with volunteer Centennial and going out and trying to unplug some of those dry hydrants in Aspen country. It was always a challenge, and this county is fraught with dry spaces. The Hall water program that the board has implemented, it's a game changer. It truly is a game changer. One of the things that we face in Wyoming is that with tenders are very dangerous. A lot of line of duty deaths with volunteers have happened with tender rollovers. And because of that, Wyoming has chosen to require CDLs for firefighters to be able to drive tenders. Some of our neighboring states do not require CDLs to drive a tender. Wyoming does. However, since we also still have that $3 million to finance that, it's just one of those added costs that the districts have to, or that our district has to then absorb. The fire departments are always going to struggle to find water. They're always going to struggle to find volunteers to be properly trained, safely trained, to not overreact with a tender, to not drive with a half-filled tender, and to be able to adequately get enough water to a fire scene. There's lots of challenges, and it's a big topic, much bigger than 90 seconds could really adequately take care of.
I bet it certainly sounds complex. You guys have convinced me. The next question, we'll start with Joe and then go to Luke and Brett. And Joe, all night long, you've been really good at anticipating the next question. I think the next time we do this, you should be the moderator.
No, thanks.
So here's the question for you, Joe. To what extent is reducing landowner insurance costs a responsibility of a fire district? And does the fire district accrue any benefits from doing so?
Well, it's not really a responsibility. It's something that if you do, it will help you. And it's a win-win situation. If you can lower the property costs, you're going to get much happier constituents. And if you have happier constituents, your fundraiser is going to be much easier and better attended, because that has to be a two-way street. There is, you want the people to help you, and the best way to do that is to help them. And it not only helps by lowering their costs, it increases their interest, and that may help your recruiting and retention. Especially, it may help you to get some younger people. Some of these older people's children will come up and volunteer. I think the biggest, well, Centennial just got 2 new recruits because their father came out here and the 2 sons are volunteering and they're in their 20s. And that's the best you can do, is to
Okay,
get the people interested and help you.
thanks, Joe. Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And just to clarify, the main question was what's the role of the fire department to reduce the ISO rating?
Yeah, to what extent is reducing landowner insurance costs a responsibility of the fire district?
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a tough question. And I agree with Joe that it is a win-win when you're able to reduce that ISO. In my experience, the ISO is how do I say it? It's an educational opportunity. And what I mean by that is every so often, I think every 2 years to 5 years, the ISO comes out and grades each of the apparatus, the water supply, the roster, and looks at what the adequacy of the department really is. Now, with that, they judge that to give that area, that department, an ISO number, which, like Joe said, is going to reduce the homeowner's assessed value or increase it if it's not that good. What I see and my experience has been is it's an opportunity for the fire department to go out and educate the constituents, educate them to the point where they understand why it's important to have 800 feet of 5-inch on the back of the fire truck instead of 700 feet on the back of the fire truck, why it's important to have 5 haligans or 3 pike poles or whatever, the correct number of adapters. So really, it's an education opportunity. That's been my experience anyways. It's an educational opportunity. Oftentimes to be able to do during those fundraisers, it brings awareness to the department. And by doing so, you get more involvement. When you get more involvement, you get better product. By getting better product, you get lower assessment value. So it's a win-win.
Okay. Brett.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So what extent is the objective, or should it be the objective of the district to reduce those ISO ratings? And why should that be an objective? There's lots of mays that have come out about this. It may encourage local members or local citizens to come out and participate in the fire department. It may result in increased fundraising activities, may do this, may do that. From my standpoint, I have no concrete evidence that that's happening. None up at Beatable. Are we an outlier? I doubt it. It's a difficult thing to measure in terms of the ISO and the efficiency and effectiveness of what it does. To me, that is a artificial metric that should not really be utilized here. It's a benefit to the local landowners if we can reduce their insurance rates, and that's great if it happens, but I think our first objective should be providing the best fire protection possible. If that results in a better rating and better insurance rates, that's a great sidebar, a great additional benefit, but that should not be our objective. To get the best firefighting protection possible should be our #1 priority. Again, I don't agree with some of the tests that the ISO comes with to measure your capability. I think they don't measure much, and sometimes you get more credit than you should deserve, and may result in a artificially reduced ISO rating. Thank you.
You bet. Okay, the next question that someone has sent in, we'll start with Luke and then go to Brett and Joe. And all 3 of you have hit upon the answer to this in some of your previous questions. But this will be an opportunity to kind of pull it all together in answering this. And here's the question, starting with you, Luke, is what is your experience with wildland and structure fire prevention?
Fire prevention,
Yes,
not suppression.
correct.
Okay. Fire prevention is an entirely different animal than suppression. So I'll go with what the person writing in is asking is about fire prevention for structure wildland. My training has gone through National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland. I've gone through Fire Investigation School. I've worked with our fire marshal here in Laramie, and worked with our prevention department as well. I've done many fire inspections throughout the city of Laramie on local businesses, some homes, some daycares. Structure prevention is something that actually is taught at a young age. The Laramie Fire Department has a clown program that's very successful that teaches up to fourth graders in terms of safety and survival, that touches in a lot on the prevention aspect of it. Prevention in the wildland and urban interface is a little bit trickier. There's great resources on FEMA. FEMA.gov has a website, or is a website that has a specific PDF on home builders in the home builders construction in the wildland fire area, I believe is what it's called. And it has a lot to do with basic fuel knowledge. When you're able to take a step back at your own structures, your own area, and see how fire crawls through places, then you're able to start looking at how to prevent that route to your home.
Thanks, Luke. Brett.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'll echo some of Luke's comments there. We normally do the attack and a fire suppression rather than prevention. However, I am going to take credit for my wife's activities. We owned a cabin in Montana a number of years ago. It was in the Lewis and Clark National Forest, and it was just about 5 miles from the Bob Marshall Wilderness. Extremely rugged, extremely wild terrain. And she has a penchant for cleaning up the house, the yard, the local forest. And she was out there raking the forest and cleaning branches, and she was getting some ribbing from myself and the neighbors in the local area. But it turned out a year later, when she had done a great job of cleaning up around that place, and this is before I'd ever become a member of the volunteer fire department, the Ahorn fire blossomed up there, and cabins were threatened all throughout the area. And she had done such a great job when the firefighters came through to triage and pick out which places they're going to invest some efforts to help protect. They came across our cabin. They found a lovely, beautifully raked forest with all the ladder branches removed, which I helped her with the ladder branches, certainly in the heavy lifting there. But they gave her an A+ on what she'd done, and they took efforts to protect their place, put a pumpkin tank out there with a trash pump and sprinklers on it to help protect that place. And that was my first real introduction to what it takes to adequately protect structures in a wildland urban interface like this. And it takes some work, a lot of work. So thank you to my wife. I'll tell her later.
And thanks to you, Brett. Joe.
Yes, I think one of the things that you come across is you learn from experience. And when I first moved here, one of the things was in our subdivision, there was no metal roofs were allowed. And after they started talking about the big fires there in Yellowstone, in the expensive homes around there that had required cedar shakes, they found out that wasn't such a good idea. And I think that's only part of the experience. And when you see that, you learn, pick up other little things, and it starts from there. And then you started moving away from the house and protecting the area of the house. But the big thing, like Luke says, a training program with children where you, in the young grades, you get them interested and they go back and they ask their parents questions. And that really starts the ball rolling. And when everybody's involved, it's a much easier program to run. And when they can see that, more things are added in. And then you can get smoke detectors and artificial things. But as long as the people are interested and the kids push it, the parents go along.
Okay, thanks, Joe. That's the end of the list of questions that I received. In the process, one other question occurred to me that I'll throw out to you three guys, but I'm not sure if it's something that you deal with in the Albany County Fire District. I mentioned before, when I was up with the Atlantic City Volunteer Fire Department in Fremont County, one of the issues that we dealt with quite a bit was the transportation of hazardous materials over South Pass. And of course, with the weather and including the wind, a lot of trucks got tipped over. And when we reported to the scene, we weren't really quite sure what was in the trucks and how to deal with it. So my question, starting with Brett, is does the fire district here deal with hazardous materials? And if so, what should the district's approach be to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. You know, Vita Vu is primarily a wildland operation. However, we sit right off the interstate. And just as you mentioned, at your Atlantic City operation, there's trucks going up and down this road every day with some pretty foul stuff on them. And we have to be aware and take precautions about it. Now, our role, the Albany County Fire District does not have an official role with regards to emergency response on the interstate. We're paged for it. We're aware of it, and we'll leave your tanker, 4,000-gallon water hauling machine, and head out there to provide support to Laramie Fire Department, which has the primary responsibility for emergencies on the interstate. There is training available as well if we care to start going down the path of structure protection, extrication, those types of scenarios, and utilizing the breathing apparatus to make sure we're safe as we approach those things. But typically right now we are in a support role to the lead agencies. Number one, Laramie Fire Department. Their paramedics will provide water. We've done that on a number of emergencies up here. There was a large diesel tanker that rolled over here 2 or 3 years ago, just down the road, spewing diesel all over. We showed up to provide water as they're taking care of those issues. So there's a number of nasty things coming through here. It ends up on the side of the road and in the ditches, and we show up in a support role, keeping ourselves safe, providing water primarily to the professional firefighters from the city of Laramie and the efforts they do.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Joe? Joe, are you still with us? Okay, while Joe reconnects, do you want to take a shot at that, Luke?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to, Chairman. Yeah, as Chief Wadsworth said, in our area, Laramie Fire Department actually provides it's RRT or Region 4 that's working in this area. Under Chief Lamb, I'll give props out to Chief Lamb. Under Chief Lamb, I went to, with Laramie Fire Department, I went to the Wyoming State Fire Academy up in Riverton. Gosh, I don't remember, 6, 7, 8 years ago, to attend hazmat technician school. It's a 2-week academy, and I served on the Region 4 team here with Laramie Fire Department. You'd be amazed how much stuff really comes across I-80 and up and down 287. It isn't just biologic anymore. There's both chemical, biologic, and then also we've got nuclear waste that comes across our highways these days as well. It is hundreds of hours. Officer Matthews with Laramie Fire Department right now has taken over that role with the Region 4 team. He does an excellent job. And like Chief Wadsworth said, that is their primary role in their response. They go all the way from Rawlins, all the way to the Laramie County border and mutual aid with Cheyenne region team and CST team out of F.E. Warren Air Force Base as well. Those guys do excellent jobs. They come in. I've seen them do work at the state vet lab here in town. It's a whole nother animal. And again, why that 3 mil is just not quite enough to cover everything that we do anymore.
Okay, thanks. And Joe, are you with us? Nope, I don't see him, unfortunately. We'll go to one more question here, and then we'll go ahead to some concluding remarks. And if Joe catches back up with us, we'll give him an opportunity to catch up with the dialogue as well. So Luke, we'll start with you on this one. I think it may have been you earlier in the forum. You had touched upon the topic of the importance of morale with regard to retaining volunteer firefighters. What is the role, or what are some of the things that a director can do to keep morale up in the fire department?
That's a great question, Mr. Chairman. That's, I believe actually Chief Wadsworth is the one that brought up morale, and he absolutely. I think that morale can be degraded from both the bottom up and the top down. Positive support, increased encouragement, supporting the chiefs, supporting the lieutenants and the officers within each of the departments is paramount. Understanding that we have challenges, understanding that we can't always do everything all the time, and that we're always going to have staffing issues, especially as volunteer agencies, ebb and flow with the times. Right now is a challenging time. I think Joe touched on that. The number of volunteers nationally is down. And I think it's still around 85% of the country's firefighters are volunteers. So with that number decreasing in terms of what, the job's still there. The job's still even getting bigger. The service is even more. Our populations are aging. And it's easy to start pointing fingers and getting discouraged. It's very easy to get discouraged, especially when, a call comes out and maybe only a couple of guys show up. And on a scene, or it takes a long time for those firefighters to show up. It can be extremely discouraging because you feel that you're doing everything on your own. And so I think that positive support, the constant encouragement, the understanding that that a board doesn't know everything and they won't know everything, but that they can have faith in their chiefs to know to support them and move them forward.
Okay, thanks, Luke. We'll go to Brett and then back out to Joe. I see that Joe has rejoined us, and so we'll touch base with Joe again after you've had a chance to comment, Brett. So go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Mike, and thanks, Luke, for the shout out there on my original comment. Yeah, morale, when you can do nothing else in terms of rewarding people who you're responsible for, you have to work on morale any way you can. Number one, they have to be kept informed about what's going on. There has to be a free flow of information so that they can understand why decisions are being made, not just what the decision is. Got to lead by example? Sure, that's easy. That's straight out of my Marine Corps 101 leadership. You got to respect their opinions and their time. Don't waste it. Value their time as much as their families do. Every time they go out the door on a call out, they are taking time away from their families one way or the other. I hear it regularly from my own wife, just to be perfectly honest. And there's an awful lot of time spent by volunteers at the departments. I would co-opt something from doctors. First, do no harm with your decisions. Understand the second order consequences of the decisions you're making by the time it gets down to the volunteer firefighters in the departments. You can't just arbitrarily do something that's budget driven that's going to result in pissing off half of your members. You do that, well, you're once again down to a bunch of buildings and a bunch of trucks and nobody to operate it. You have to care and feed them very carefully. And then also don't offload too many administrative tasks on the shoulders of volunteers. Their time is being donated to fight fires. Allow them to reserve their time to focus on that instead of too many administrative items. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks, Brett. Joe, we'll go out to you and give you some extra time here to catch up with the last two questions. The first one was what the fire department or what the fire district does with regard to hazardous materials. And then the second one is the district's approach with regard to maintaining morale for the volunteer firemen.
Well, the first one with our role in a hazmat situation is very small. the city of Laramie has some specially trained firefighters to handle almost any situation. The only thing, well, the thing that the volunteers can do is the smaller things to help them out, but they have to be able to recognize the situation and give what I would call a smart help and do whatever the city needs done in that situation. But the biggest thing is to be there to support it. As far as the morale and running of the whole district, is what the board tried to do is they instituted having the chiefs get together once a month and set the policies and stuff, and then the board would try and implement whatever the chiefs wanted to do. We made some changes, but most of the inner workings of each department was made available to us, and we just decided to go along with what they were doing unless it was really out of line or one of the other departments really. But the biggest thing was to let the people come up with the ideas and then to implement them, give them the money so they could implement those ideas.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Well, folks, we've an hour or more than an hour has slipped by very quickly. I've learned a great deal tonight. So let's go ahead and move to the final question. And like I said before, it's an open-ended question. And essentially, and we'll start with Joe and then go to Luke and Brett. And here it is. You have 90 seconds to say whatever you want to say. If you want to throw out some additional responses to a previous question, feel free to do that. If you have some other things on your mind that you want to convey, now's the time to do it. So Joe, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Well, I think one thing, we have to go with the times, and it looks like wind farms are thing of the times. And because of that, most of these corporations that are starting these have to provide impact funds to the county. And I think that is a great opportunity for the fire district to get some large funds so we can upgrade our stations and upgrade the equipment, which is sorely lacking, but there's no way that we can get that sum of money any other way at this time that I can see. So I think that is our greatest possibility going forward, is to try and work off that.
Okay, thanks, Joe. Luke?
Sure. Thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. I've never done this before. I got to be honest, I was extremely nervous going into this, but it's been a pleasure. I oftentimes in these questions, 90 seconds just was not enough to answer some of these questions. So I truly appreciate this time. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for setting this up, for Nancy Lockwood to email me 2 or 3 times to get me back on page with everything that's going on. And I wanted to thank you, Chairman Mike Massie, for getting nerves calmed down quite a bit through your questioning. So that's great. You know, I do want to say that you know, all of my running mates are great. Joe's done an excellent job with the board. Chief Wadsworth does an excellent job with Vitavu. Chief Summerfield does an excellent job with Big Laramie. This is a great organization. This is a great community to be part of. I'm looking forward to the opportunity to be able to work with them and work for them. Well, I think one of the things that does set me apart from my running mates is the fact that I'm coming in as an outsider that has been here for a long time. You know, having served with Albany County for years, and then served with the Laramie Fire Department, I think I'm bringing a lot of different experience to the table. And then also not being directly involved with a particular fire department, not being a chief with the fire department, has its advantages and some of its disadvantages as well. But I think it's something worth mentioning. So thank you. It's been a great opportunity.
You bet, Luke. Brett?
Thanks, Mike. And thanks, I would echo Luke's comments in terms of Mike, your conduct of the discussion tonight. I'd also like to thank Albany County Library and League of Women Voters as well. I know when I go into the voting booth, I always like to grab the League of Women Voters voting guide I've already marked it up and I know where I'm going and how I'm going to go there and who I'm going to vote for. So I appreciate what you do to inform the community. Quick summary, I spent a career in the military. It was a terrific training, background, and staff functioning, high-level decision-making. My time since coming to Laramie 12 years ago, given me experience in the fire community. It's also exposed me simply to community service, along with the volunteer firefighting operation I'm a part of. I'm currently on the Laramie Regional Airport Board as well, trying to help them to grow and develop and operate well also. I think I offer a new approach, new insights, different insights, and particularly a deep respect for the volunteers, since I'm doing the same thing they are on a daily basis. And I think that's really a way how we can help move the Albany County Fire District forward. That's why it's having somebody in there who understands, one, what it's like to lead people. I led over 400 Marines, so I was responsible for their daily care, feeding, morale, and discipline at times, unfortunately, as well. So I spent a career serving my country. I ask for your support and now continuing my support to the community. Thank you.
You bet. And a thanks to the three candidates who participated in the forum tonight. Luke Hawkins, Brett Wadsworth, and Joe Witt. I think anybody like me who listens to you is going to be reminded of just how important the Albany County Fire District is to the folks who live in the county in so many different ways. And it's easy to forget. You're often not reminded about how important the fire department is until you actually need one. And you wind up, if you live out there long enough, you're going to find out that you need one in more ways than one and in more times than you can possibly think of. And then you realize just how vital they are to your life. When I lived up in the Atlantic City area for many years, the folks in Atlantic City, in responding to questions from outsiders, asking about their city government, the folks in Atlantic City said, "We have no government. We don't need a government because we have a fire department." Again, thanks to our candidates, a appreciation as well to the Albany County Public Library for hosting the forum, and of course a deep appreciation to Nancy, to the timekeeper, to the camera operator, and to all the folks there with the League of Women Voters, and the wonderful service that they provide to us here in Albany County through voter education. So I kick it back over to you, Nancy.
All right, thank you, Mike. He's given all the thank yous out to everybody, the candidates, the library, all that I usually do. I do have a few reminders aside from thank yous. One is that this was the second of 7 forums that we are doing for the general election. The first one was last night. We have one on September 22 for the county commission candidates and the clerk of district court candidates. September 23 for city council candidates. September 24 for hospital board of trustees in the Laramie Rivers Conservation District. September 30, we'll have the Wyoming Senate District 10 and Wyoming House Districts 13 and 46 candidates. And I will conclude on October 1 with the Wyoming House Districts 14, 45, and 47 candidates. These are all being recorded. They are not being live broadcast, but I mentioned the dates because that gives you a time frame of when to be looking for them to be posted on YouTube so that you can watch the recordings. We try to have the postings done within 3 days of the event. They will be posted on YouTube, and I will share the YouTube link, the website for that here. They're also, like I said, going to be posted on vote411.org and probably on vote411.org, and channel 191 will be airing them as well. Final reminder to look at the general election voters guide as well, as some of the candidates have mentioned. It's a key component to learning about candidates and becoming an informed voter. So above all else, please get out and vote. And I will conclude this with a screenshot here of the candidates' contact information should you want to contact them to get further information from them, and the links to the other sites. And here we go. I'm going to actually shrink this down.
Yeah.
I shrink it down, I think I can get it all in there. There we go. So we'll leave that up for about a minute or so, and then people are free to leave the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Really appreciate it.